All right. Hello and welcome back to yet another rendition of the VBA podcast where we turn stats into storytelling and seasons into sagas. I am, of course, the host, Dalton, your commissioner, and I am joined by none other than the man himself, the game developer. I'll just let himself introduce himself. Jeremy, right?
Yeah, that's my real name. You may know me as DUMBMATTER on the internet, and yeah, glad to be here.
Perfect, man. Yo, first and foremost, huge thanks for carving out some of your time to join this. Your game has brought a lot of communities together. I am a little biased. I think mine is the best, the strongest. We've been going for 2 years in May. Pretty much the same guys. We've expanded from 12 teams to 30 now over the course of 2 years, but everybody is pretty much stayed still. So yeah, it's been a great community. But I have a lot on the plate, and I have no time to waste. So now that I got you here face to face, man, I just want to start off. I always ask anyone who's like interested in my league what they like personally get out of BBGM and what makes the experience fun for them. For me, it's storytelling. The lore, the legacies that build over decades. So I just want to ask you the same thing. What do you get out of your game, BBGM? You can answer as a developer, or you can answer as a fan or a player of the game.
Yeah, well, I hardly even play the game anymore at this point because when I first made it, I would this is kind of how I knew that like I was on the right path is that I'd be working on the game and I'd be like, let me test this thing and see if it works, and then I would kind of like get hooked playing the game, and distract me from like actually finishing the completing the game. But at this point, that was a long time ago, and then eventually I think I felt like making the game is more fun than playing the game. And then I see some of the people who are posting on like, people have made some incredible posts on Reddit of like, there was one guy who like won a championship in insane mode in the smallest market, like 100 seasons in a row. And it's like, I don't think I could do that, like, I don't think I know how to do that, or I have to read his blog post to understand how to do that in my own game. But so yeah, at this point, I just kind of like enjoy making the game because it's a fun programming project.
So from your experience, and this I'm going already off script and 5 minutes into it. Ha, during your beginning, I remember on the first pod that I listened to, you mentioned that you wanted this idea to come to life, but you weren't that good at programming. Did you literally learn programming to make this game?
Not quite to that extent. I knew a thing or two before. Yeah, like I'd never made a video game. All I had made was like websites and like, web programming. I guess Basketball GM is a website now. Originally it wasn't. So originally it was like, let me try this new thing, like make like a video game that like, runs like a normal video game on your computer. So it was more like a new type of programming that I'd never done before.
Hmm. Got you. I'm somebody that has literally zero coding experience. I tried to learn to implement like kind of a fantasy point system for BBGM, which I know I asked you literally years ago. I went back in the into the Discord and I asked if that would be a thing. Yeah, so I have literal zero knowledge. I commend the people that take the time to find those things out.
Well, soon the AI will just do it for you. So
That's
whatever.
great. I won't jump ahead of. Actually, I'll go ahead and ask you.
Uh-huh.
So this is one of the key points I wanted to touch on. With the rise of AI, is there like a possibility of seeing any implementation of it within BBGM?
There definitely is. I think that's a controversial topic in video games in general because people are like, a lot of people don't want it in video games. But I think like a sports simulation game is a little different because there's just like all this data and storylines being generated, and a lot of it's kind of just like in the background, and you might be missing out on some things, or you know basically like there's a lot of AI features you can imagine as like a layer on top of the game. It doesn't actually like change the core gameplay, but like you could be listening to a podcast like this about your league, or reading news articles or videos, or it could be generating photos from within the game itself, or player photos over time, or all kinds of stuff like that. The reason I haven't done it is really two reasons. One is that things are changing so fast that what I've seen with some other people is that they'll build this system on top of some AI model, and then the new model comes out, and then it doesn't quite work the same as it worked before, and you have to like tweak some things and come back, and then like if you think what people were doing a year ago, 2 years ago, things are very different now. And then the other reason is, if you want to do good cutting edge AI stuff, you got to pay, for access to some API. Like I could add that in, but then if it becomes expensive, then it's like, can I give it away for free? Do I need to charge money for it? Like, it becomes complicated to manage. Then another thought I had was, well, I could have, the user subscribe to to the API on their own. Like you can sign up for your OpenAI API and enter your own key into the game, and then it would use that, and that would actually work. But I don't know how many people would actually want to, jump through all those hoops to do it. But eventually, I'll probably do something because there's a lot of cool stuff that could be done, and I think it like wouldn't actually be like contrary to the core of the game, like a lot of people worry about.
Sure. Well, I'll be the first to tell you if you ever do that OpenAI system for a subscription, you have somebody here willing, whether it's monthly, yearly. I'm sure it wouldn't be too crazy of a subscription, but that is literally what prompted me to ask that because I feel like AI could enhance immersion exponentially. Especially.
What do you think we could do with it?
So I currently use a lot of AI within BBGM as far as like content wise. So creating in-depth like player identities, backgrounds, personalities, even as far as going into like the whole Donovan McClellan thing, with the Reddit posts, with the murder trial, like all of that. I wrote the entire articles, but I used a lot of the AI for just for like formatting, I guess, for lack of better terms, formatting to run the procedure itself. Yeah, but as far as like player identities go, like backgrounds and backstories, even college
Yeah.
stats, like
Yeah, I've seen people using it in like ZenGM baseball, trying to simulate like like the 1920s baseball league, and they'll generate like black and white pictures of these like old looking baseball players, and it's like it's really cool.
yeah, I mean, all 30 logos for my league were generated with AI. And I feel like that's even something that could, I don't know if there's like a partnership or like sourcing your own open AI or like yeah, your own like whatever you use. I don't know what that looks like for you, but I know that like generating logos, player images, stuff like that could be super beneficial.
Yeah, even if it's not like, so from what I've seen with like logo generation, is like it does a good job. They're not quite as good as the ones that are built into the game, in my opinion. I haven't been able to get the AI to make things that are like quite that good.
Hmm.
But then like it would be cool if it was just like, integrated in the game, and you just, you enter your team name and your team region, and it'll like show up, here's five logos, pick one. Like
Yeah.
something like that would be really cool.
Or even like for expansions, whenever, yeah, I don't know what league does this, but whenever you use all the base teams
Yeah.
in BBGM,
Or
maybe
you
like,
just want a different one. Maybe you
yeah,
just wanted
sure, sure. No, that's interesting. Obviously that is an issue for you. That's your doing. So best of luck on that adventure. I'm sure that is gonna be a lot of fun for you. Um, but moving on to the next thing, let's just say that I went back and showed you the current version of BBGM to the version of you who like first conceptualized it. What do you think would surprise you the most, and how different is your first conceptual thought of BBGM than it is currently?
So, the second question's a lot easier than the first question.
Hmm.
Let me answer the second question first, and then ask me the first one again. Because, yeah, I think it's like, it's somewhat beyond what I initially wanted. Um, like, it's already has pretty much all the features I wanted when I initially made it, plus a bunch of extra stuff. And then plus, like, all the different sports, like, that's just like a bonus. Um, Yeah, so I would say there's a lot of extra stuff in it. What was that? Can you say the first question again? Just
Yeah, just let's just say we went back in time and I showed you the current version of BBGM
yeah,
and what it is now. What if I showed it to you at the time that you first conceptualized it?
yeah,
How like what would surprise you the most about it?
yeah. Probably I don't know. It's not a great, not a fun answer. Probably just like what I was saying before. Like just like like the depth of it, how many different pages there are in the game, and how many different ways of viewing stats, how like you know complete it is in that regard.
Sure. Yeah, no, if it's not as colorful as you want it to be, or not as deep, there's no issues with that. You know what I mean? You
Uh-huh.
are the you are the developer, so I just would not be able to feel right with myself if I got you on here and I didn't ask the questions that have always been lingering in my mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what we're here for.
Well, you drew inspiration from Baseball Mobile to create a basketball management game. And
Very true.
while the game is built for single player, you are aware of how many multiplayer leagues are actively running now. As I mentioned, I run a full 30 team league with fully branded team jerseys, courts, logos, betting bots, historical player lore. The list goes on and on. Did you ever anticipate that level of immersion when building it? And how do you think BBGM can become a better multiplayer game?
Yeah, definitely didn't anticipate the multiplayer stuff, because like it's kind of it's not the best interface, right? Like it's not designed for multiplayer. When I initially released it, even things like God mode didn't exist, multi-team mode didn't exist. Multi-team mode I basically added for. Okay, I'm not 100%. I might be making this up. I think the reason was people were asking for it for multiplayer leagues, and that was like you know the easiest thing I could do to make it like somewhat workable. Like you have multi-team mode, you can at least do something. It's not ideal. Like obviously, ideally, you'd want to be able to natively go in the game and everyone can log in and connect to the same league and view it in the UI. This is a notoriously difficult thing to retrofit into a video game. If a video game is initially made as a single player game, and then you come back and say, "Oh, I'm just going to add multiplayer onto it later," that is just like a very dangerous, difficult path that usually like doesn't work or is like extremely difficult because there's so many assumptions you in your code of things that can't happen, because it's a single player game and now it's a multiplayer game and you have to kind of rewrite the core logic of everything, and it's kind of a nightmare to do. If I was if I had wanted, maybe it would have been better if I had designed it as a multiplayer game from the beginning, but that's also more difficult, right? It's easier to make a single player game than a multiplayer game. So if I had started off saying, this game is going to be all things to all people, I might not have finished it because I might have gotten bogged down in some of the details and, never got to the point where, it was fun for any purpose. It would be really cool if it, if it was a real multiplayer game, because I know some people love it, some people get really into it, which is kind of weird for me because like I don't really like multiplayer games personally because like I feel like somebody winds up cheating, and it's so difficult to prevent. And it's especially in this type of game, like a sandbox game where like you can do anything, and that's part of the appeal of playing it single players. You can do anything, but then in multiplayer, that's kind of like not what you want. Um, so yeah, with multiplayer leagues, it's always funny whenever I get like 5 messages at the same time, like, "Hey, how big of a prog can somebody get for the speed rating?" And it's like 5 people asking at the same time. I'm like, I wonder. I think I know what happened. This is like the 20th time this has happened.
Yeah.
Is somebody's up to something. The way to prevent that would be if it was a real multiplayer game and you couldn't just go in and edit everything.
Right.
You were restricted in doing, only certain operations, or I guess ideally it would be multiplayer mode would have those restrictions and single player wouldn't. And then it's, gets complicated. And then, yeah, so when I designed it, I was, thinking it's going to be a single player game because that's what I want to play. That's what I want to make. And then it's like, why are these people playing my single player game as a multiplayer game? Like, um, but it's really cool to see, what people do with it, and use my game in ways that I didn't anticipate. And I just, on some level, kind of feel bad that it's not a better experience and that it's not a more streamlined UI. But then I don't know. Maybe that like selects for the the real hardcore players, because if you're gonna join a basketball GM league, you better really like GMing a basketball team, because you're gonna have to jump through some hoops to do it.
Right. Well, there's a lot of help with the bot that was created. I forget who, and I know there's been a whole bunch of allegations and weird things surrounding that whole situation, but the bot itself is a really cool, I guess, component to help run leagues and make them easier. But just
Yeah.
going back to your point, if you have a dedicated and passionate commissioner, which I'm an observer. I'm a spectator before anything. I cannot tell you how many leagues I've actually sat down and played it as, like a real GM. Like I'm here to appease the owner. I'm here to, to hit all these points. I literally just put it in spectator mode and just spectate leagues. So if you have a passionate GM or a passionate commissioner, who's not really concerned about cheating and wanting their team to win. I know that was a situation in a really big league literally last month, which you may be have pointed to, but yeah, I don't know. It's beautiful how it is right now if you have a passionate and oh no, what the fuck happened? My God, hello.
Okay. Yeah, you're back now.
All right, I told you this website has never failed me, and of course it fails me right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's the website's fault. It's not your fault. You're
Yeah,
blaming the
no,
website.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Never using Riverside again. This is not promo, by the way. Anyway, yeah, I just feel like you need to have a steadfast commissioner who is all about just league growth and everything like that in order to run a
Yeah.
multiplayer league. It's really not that hard. It's a lot of
Yeah.
tasks day to day, but it's really not that hard of a thing. And that kind of leads me into the next question. Like, at what point does BBGM stop being a game and start being like a world building tool? Do you think?
That's a good question. I mean, I guess it's whatever you want it to be. Some people definitely use it that way. Uh, there's also that one guy in Discord who, is always asking like, are the things that are happening in basketball GM real? Does God exist in basketball GM? And like he asked me these questions over and over again. It can be whatever you want it to be, I guess. Yeah, I think he's like, you know, I don't know. I don't know if he like totally like gets what's going on because he asks the same questions over and over. But yeah,
What was your answer to that? That's
I mean, I just tell him the truth. Like, it's not real, and I don't like.
yeah. I guess your perception is your reality. I guess so. If God exists in His BBGM save, then tell him to bring him over to mine. What part of the game do you personally think is the most underrated?
The most underrated. See, these are hard questions.
Because
Um,
I did my job.
yeah, see, these are questions that like if I had time to think about it, I'd come up with like a much better answer. Uh, Most underrated. Yeah, I don't know.
Most underrated, most underappreciated. Are they different things? Are they different features?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a specific example, but like I know I get this feeling like every now and again when somebody will like give me like ask me a question about like a certain feature, or tell me, oh, I really like this feature, and then I'm like, it's some like very minor detail, and I'll be like, oh, I didn't know anybody like noticed. Like, I'm glad somebody like noticed that. I'm glad somebody appreciated that. I'm like blanking on like good examples of what these are, but like at this point, like it's over the years, like all these little details have like built up in the game that a lot of people like aren't aware of. I would say it's probably like the most subtle thing you can imagine that someone actually notices, and then I'm like, oh, like somebody actually appreciates it,
Just from like a UI perspective, or like an actual
or
game
or
feature?
internal to the game, or like, yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, less of personal questions, I guess, philosophical, more covering the future of BBGM, and maybe these will be just as hard. Um, we kind of touched on it already a little bit, but do you ever plan on adding a more immersive player background experience, such as the bios, college stats, idols, stuff like that?
Um, I would like to do some of that. they all have their challenges. Uh, College stats obviously would be really nice. The reason I haven't done it yet is because, well, the problem with college stats is like it depends on your team context. Like if you're at like a mid-major or you're at like Duke, 15 points a game means something different. So then, like, should I design it so, like, well, we just assume that like the user is gonna is gonna know what colleges are good, and well, what if it's a historical sim and they're playing in 1960, and then like, the different colleges were good then, or different colleges are going to be good in the future, or should that change over time if you sim 100 years into the future? And then like, I'm kind of like, I don't know the answer to these questions, or like, what, is it just going to wind up being confusing? So then I wind up like not really doing it. But like obviously it would be really nice to have. It would make the draft experience better. That's one of the things. Yeah, I kind of don't like how like the. I wish the draft was a little more immersive because that's such a big part of basketball, sports in general, but especially basketball is all the the drama and excitement around the draft. Um, yeah, but then it's not a there's trade offs involved though.
Yeah, and that's I think the draft is where I use the AI the most. Giving these guys stats and team context. All we have to go off of is the team or like the college they played for or no college. So you have to, make something up, which is fun. It's as a guy with a screenwriting degree, like I have a lot of fun doing those things. But I know some people don't enjoy doing that and they would have rather those things. So, I don't know. It could go both ways. I think the draft is a lot of fun in an arbitrary sense for me personally, but it would also be really really dope if we did have some more information to go off of, even if it's just traits, like personality traits.
Yeah, personality traits are no. Yeah, I'm not sure if I want to add personality traits. I'm a little more skeptical of that, just because in general I'm skeptical of adding more things to the game because I like the kind of like streamlined gameplay. Like if you think of like if you play like Football Manager, Out of the Park Baseball, or something, like there's just like a lot more going on in those games. And I know a lot of people like that. Like those games are more popular than Basketball GM. Like people like that stuff. But for me personally, I feel like it's like it's a bit much at sometimes. Like I don't necessarily like care. That my backup center and my third string point guard don't like each other. It's like well, like, whatever. But I would probably only do that. I have this like thought in the back of my head, like maybe I would want to just add all these features that like people are like, why don't you add this? Why don't you add this? Oh, it's in Football Manager. It's in Out of the Park Baseball. It's in all these other games. Um, and then I give this like answer like, oh, well, maybe it's too complicated, blah, blah, blah. Um, what if I just add all that stuff and then like, make like, you know, my version of that kind of game. And then I could like, it would almost be a different game at that point. It would have, coaching and player personalities and training camp and, all those types of features that I'm kind of like reluctant to add, but people would probably like. I don't know if or when I'll ever actually do it, but it would be an interesting project to take on.
And
But if
so,
it's going to happen, it would probably all happen at once, and it would probably be as like a separate version of the game, or maybe even like a different game.
so whenever you say separate version, it would just be a different like website domain.
I don't even know. Maybe it would be like maybe I'd put it in Steam and it'd be like a normal video game.
Okay. Well, I know you're big on keeping the game free, keeping the game, not like too complex, So, if you ever do branch out, because I'm sure, you've been working on this for what? You've been working on it for a very long time, but the first subreddit post was what, 13 years ago? A little over.
Correct. Yeah.
So, I mean, have you ever gotten like to a point where you just have thought maybe this is run its course, like the game has reached maybe not peak, but it's good enough to where I can leave it alone and start something else?
I have felt that. Yeah. Because like it's it can be it's true and it's not true because like obviously you can look at the game and even ignoring like all the adding these features and stuff that I'm not sure about, there's tons of stuff that I am sure about that was like yes, that would like absolutely improve the game. There's a very very long list of things, and like it's never going to be finished, like it can always be improved. So like in that sense it's like no, absolutely not, like the game is like it should be better, like some parts of it are like almost like I want to say like embarrassing. Like I feel like it should be better. Like I want it to be better. Like, sometimes people ask me like, why does it, why does this happen in the game? Why does this work that way? Why does it generate players like this? Why does this simulate the games like this? And like, I'm like, it kind of shouldn't. Like, I wish it was better. Um, but then at the same time, like, it's been here for 13 years, and people like it. Some people have been here playing it for a long time, and some people, a lot of people like the way it is now, and would keep playing it even if I like, completely stopped updating it. And at times I have stopped updating it in the past, like when I was, working on another sport, or there was another like I took like a few months to work on like a secret project, and I wound up nothing came of it because it was progressing too slow, and I was like, this is going to take me like 2 years to finish, and I can't just like not update Basketball GM for 2 years. Like that's a bit much. Um, so yeah, like I definitely do feel that motivation sometimes. Like, well, like, I could just do like something else, but as long as like this many people are like playing my games, it's probably too much motivation to keep improving it because they can be improved. Um, yeah.
Sure. Well, you said, and not to put you on the spotlight, or put you on a stadium, but you said some things that are embarrassing to you. Like, what are some of those things that you really feel like? Well, just speaking from experience, like I'm an artist, so like whenever I listen to old things that I've done, old songs that I've done, I'm like, ooh, that could have been a lot better. You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
what are some things like that for you?
Yeah. Well, I think the worst part of Basketball GM now, and it's interesting, a lot of people, I'm not sure how many people agree with me that this is the worst part of the game. There's definitely some people who do. But a lot of people might not even notice this stuff, or maybe don't care. But it's really like the core of the simulation, both how player ratings are generated, how the progressions work, and how the actual game of basketball are simulated. Um, the closer you look at it, the more like you can find like little things that like are like not very realistic about all of those things.
Mm.
Um, and some of that manifests itself in like the game simulation being kind of like weird or unrealistic. Like shot selection can be weird. Different players, combining on the team together can, maybe not behave as you think they should. Or for like, what if you make a team of five centers or 5 point guards? Like, is it going to actually behave how it should? And then in terms of player ratings, like generating like different types of players, and their career arcs. Different types of career arcs. Maybe players can in real life, sometimes you'll see players, improve drastically in one area and not in other areas, and become kind of like, narrow specialists in certain things, and that's like doesn't really happen in basketball GM. In basketball GM, it's kind of like players wind up feeling a little similar, especially like if you play it a lot, you'll wind up feeling like kind of you're seeing like the same types of players over and over again. Whereas in the NBA, I mean, right now is a good example. Like if you make a list of like the top five players in the NBA, like there's a lot of very different players who are very unique styles, and basketball GM is not great at generating those right now.
I think a lot of that has to do with visual aspects, though, because you're watching these players, right? You're not seeing a number in a specific category of skill for them. So I mean,
Yeah,
they look
I don't know.
different, they move different, they play different, but at the core,
It still comes down to numbers though, because it's still like where if you're just looking at like points, rebounds, assists, sure, but if it's like where are you taking your shots? How are you taking their shots? Are they assisted? Are they not assisted? Are your three pointers like are they step backs? Are they 5 feet beyond the line? Are they are you scoring in the mid range? Are you scoring inside? How often are you getting the line? Your assists, are they, what kind of shots are you creating for your teammates? And all this stuff, if you look closely enough in the stats, does get reflected. And yeah,
that's inspired me to look at the advanced metrics of just our league's best players and kind of breaking down just some of those things. Like I know there's percentages within the game. Well, I know it's within the bot. I'm not sure actually if it's in the game or not, but like the percentage of what these players shoot at specific places, like at the rim,
yeah,
underneath the
that's in
rim.
the game.
It's in the game too. Okay, yeah.
Mm.
Well, I'm gonna inspired to do a deep dive for that for the most important players in our league. But still staying on the aspect or the visual aspect of the game, is there ever like a plan to add a more interactive visual aspect, such as like Baseball Mogul has, you know, live simcast, or ESPN has Gamecast, you know, something like that?
Yeah. Well, it's for some sports it's easier than others. Baseball's probably like the easiest because it's I guess I don't want to say completely rigid because there's pretty crazy plays that happen in baseball, but it's still kind of like if this then that. When you're playing baseball, like you know what the correct thing to do is almost every single time. Like it's rare that there's like a true like moment of creativity, but then so then when you're thinking about implementing, a visualization of the game, you can think, well, let me just encode like how a baseball player is supposed to behave. But then like how is a basketball player supposed to behave? Like, it's so dynamic. Like every single play, people are in different positions doing different things. So if you look at my games, like in football GM, there's like the drive chart where you see every play in the drive, how it builds on each one, and that's a visualization of football. It's not what's happening within each play, but it's the sequence of plays tells you a lot in football. In basketball, it doesn't really like the last five plays. It doesn't really matter what happened on the last five plays. This is a new play; anything could happen. It's not strictly true. I guess if there's like a live ball turnover, then it's a little different. But for the most part, basketball doesn't have the same type of easy visualization that I could put in like in football or baseball. So I guess this is a long way of saying probably no. I think is I'm probably not going to have a visualization. There's another game that I'm just blanking because I'm like old and my brain doesn't work. Anyway, there's another basketball simulation game out there that has a you can watch the game live and it will have like the players moving around and the ball moving around and stuff like that.
Hoopland?
No, well that's different. Yeah, so that one as well. Well, that one you can also jump in and play, but that's not like intended to be as a realistic simulation. That is a really cool game though.
Yeah, shut up.
But yeah, but if trying to make like an actual realistic simulation, I think is more challenging.
Are you familiar with the ESPN Gamecast as far as like basketball?
Yeah, I haven't looked at it in a while. I mean, is it just like the shot locations,
Yeah, it's just the shot
basically?
locations, and I mean, I like the older ones a lot better than the current one now. So now they add like the player picture, where the shot is, and you see like the little, you see the ball.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, okay, I could imagine something like that someday. The main reason I don't have that now is that the simulation doesn't really have like a 2D basketball court. Like it just picks like it's basically like a 1D basketball court. It just picks like the distance of the shot, and like that's all that gets simulated. It doesn't simulate where everyone is on the court, and where the shot's coming from. I could just make it up and I could like put it on there, but then like I feel it feels kind of like wrong that I'm like lying to you that like people are going to be looking at this and be like, oh, he took a three from from the wing, and it's like there is no wing. Like it's just, did you take a three? That's it. But then I could add that to the simulation maybe if so yeah, I'd say something like that, something like a simple like gamecast shot location thing. There's a decent chance that'll get in at some point,
okay,
but that would probably be the maximum extent of it.
that makes me personally super happy because I know I asked you. I literally went back in the Discord and looked at the feature request archive that I asked for.
Yeah,
Specifically, that was one of them, like literally
yeah,
3 years ago.
yeah. A
Um,
bunch a bunch of people have asked for that one. People would definitely like it.
yeah, and we sim. So like for the conference finals and the finals, we sim those games game by game. So it would be really cool, especially like I think out of our 32 seasons, maybe 11 or 10 of the finals have gone to game 7. So even like a live sim of that game 7 of the finals would be super dope to have. Um,
Yeah. Well, even as it is now, it's better than it used to be. Like at least
Agreed.
the live sim has improved over the years, and things like showing you who takes the shot before telling you the results adds a little bit of drama.
Right. Right. You mentioned in again the other podcast that jersey numbers were something that you just like never paid attention to. Um, but for
Yeah,
extensive,
I could probably tell you like five people's jersey numbers in the league right now.
but for extensive, passionate GMs in leagues with passionate GMs, jersey numbers are everything. They're tied to a specific player, a certain era, a culture, and identity. Are there other features that you were hesitant or reluctant to add for similar reasons that turned out to be a huge hit within the community?
That's another difficult question. Yeah, jersey numbers is whenever somebody like asks me something like that, is like jersey numbers is my go-to answer because I'm like, yeah. I mean, relatives. I think is one that I didn't particularly care. Basically a lot of the kind of like storytelling things were not in the initial version, correct? Because the initial version was like very bare bones. It's just like what is the minimal thing I need to simulate basketball, and it's like, well, it doesn't matter who's a brother or what your jersey number is. Like, it doesn't actually affect the result of the game. So like those are a couple examples. Like like what college somebody's from. I think it always had country, but it didn't have like the states. Uh, so yeah, those kinds of features.
It's crazy because hearing you just kind of like hone in on the what's logic is logic and what's stat is stat. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's what you want the game to be. However, on the other side, there's people like me who those storytelling things are literally what makes the game so rich for me.
Yeah,
It's just like the contrast between the two is so like it's interesting to me.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I probably just I'm not really coming from the same perspective as you, which isn't like a good or bad thing. It's just like you know how it is like the extent of the storytelling I would do if I'm playing like when I've played like sports simulation game is like pretty narrowly focused like you know the stats, or the most I would do is like you get attached to like a player who's on your team for a long time, something like that. But yeah, I don't know. Is this some like something like Dungeons and Dragons? I never played Dungeons and Dragons. Like it never really like appealed to me. Like I don't really like get it, but then I know it's like a very popular game. But so like I
Yeah,
don't
it's
know.
just immersion, getting lost into like stories, As somebody like I literally like I mentioned the screenwriting. I have a degree in acting and screenwriting, so like these things are what literally make the game. Like what made me come back to the game year after year. I've been playing since
Yeah,
2016, off and on for the first few years, but been playing religiously since like 2020. So for a very long time, and these features are literally what makes me just so immersed into the game.
yeah. I think that's something that I've like gradually learned over time as I'm making this game. That like no, I can't just like say like no, I'm not going to implement jersey numbers. Like people care. People care too much.
People do. Oh yeah, way too much. Like we've made graphics of jerseys and the banners,
Yeah,
like stuff like that.
yeah. And I've wound up spending like a decent amount of time in this damn jersey number feature because like I think I like when I initially implemented it, I just didn't quite do it right. I didn't like fully think it through correctly. And then I've just been like kind of like gradually fixing it over time, and then like I'll accidentally like introduce a bug and somebody will like notice something, oh, this doesn't work quite right in this situation, or yeah, there's been a lot of bugs in the jersey numbers.
Interesting. Like I said, that's way above my pay grade. So those issues will gladly fall into your hands. Is there a feature that you like want to add really bad but technically can't or just haven't found a way to yet?
It's definitely the stuff I was saying before, like the core parts of the simulation that I think are like not that good, or should be improved. And yeah, like that. Those are definitely difficult things to do because it's like it's all interlinked. Like if you change how the ratings work, that affects how the game simulation works. If you change how the game simulation works, that changes what the ratings mean.
Mhm.
So like it's difficult stuff, and then you're trying to make these changes live to a game that like thousands of people are playing, and they like already like. So I can't just mess it up. Like I can't just break it. Like it has to at least be better than it is now. So like that's difficult. I mean the other big thing I don't like about the game is how how it stores the data like in your web browser, and then things can happen and this can be deleted.
Oh, don't even get me started. I
Yeah,
love.
yeah, so like that's really bad, like it's really bad when people lose this stuff because like people get like attached to their leagues. Probably lost tons of users from people just like rage quitting after that happens to them. Like, but like it's like the only solution to that would be to like completely rewrite how the game works and like not have it run in a web browser anymore because the people who make web browsers are you know unfortunately not quite interested in supporting this type of game. They're not really interested in you know letting websites save tons of data on your hard drive. Google slightly is. Google took some steps towards like making it better, but then Mozilla and Apple were not really on board, and so it's kind of like nothing's really happening, and it seems like it's just going to always be in this like weird state where like the game works, and it's really cool that it works in the web browser, and you can just play it anywhere, and then every now and again everything's just going to get deleted.
Yeah, I lost a 400-year save, just completely single player with like 42 current teams, and it was very near and dear to my heart. But we're
You
still
know,
here
I
sitting.
I feel bad about that, like, 'cause that's like kind of my fault.
No, it's good. It's good.
Um,
It's good. I spent a lot of time, a lot of literal years, but hey, what comes goes. You know what I mean? So, somebody that understands that will be more courteous. Obviously,
yeah,
there's
not everybody does. I don't think
true,
everybody does.
true. There are two sides of the coin. Well, what about a pitched feature or idea that was so ambitious that it scared you? Has anybody given you something like an idea or pitched something that genuinely frightened you?
Frightened? No, I don't think frightened. I mean, some people will say like, "Hey, can you make it so like I can play the game like in 2K?" And then it's like, well, that's not really a task for like one person. Like, that's not like frightened. That's more just like, this is not really feasible unless I want to like, you know, I don't know, take on like funding from a major company or something and hire a staff. Yeah, I don't know. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what could frighten you. It's a video game. What can frighten you?
Well, just like an idea that was like so, I guess, challenging. I guess that's a better way to frame it. What has been the most challenging feature to implement?
Yeah, the most challenging thing I did was this was many years ago at this point. I basically Chrome changed something about how it works, and it made the game work a lot more poorly than it did previously. And to work around this, I had to rewrite like a lot of the core of the game. And while doing this, I didn't know like, is it going to work? Is it going to like, be better than before, be worse than before? And it took me like a couple weeks before I got to the point of like actually being able to run the new version with like the rewritten core of the game. And then it actually ran like way faster, and that was probably the single biggest improvement that the game ever had. Because most likely you weren't around back then, because this was like probably like 2016 or something like that when this happened. But like if you played the game in like 2015, like it was a lot slower basically. Um, and that was difficult. That was difficult because I was using some features in the web browser that like not a lot of people use. It's not well documented. Um, doesn't work exactly the same in all the different web browsers. It was challenging.
Probably a bit before my time. I used to play. I don't know if you know this game, Be the Coach Basketball.com. It's a really really old, outdated college basketball simulated game, but I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure.
I've never played that game, but I've seen that game. They have a bunch of different ones, don't they?
Yeah, it's Blue Chip Football. I forget
Yeah.
the other one. Blue Chip Hockey, I think, is another one. But I used to play that game literally religiously, and like my favorite players, I would send them over, manually change the names of my best players into a BBGM save, and kind of had them live out a pro career like that. But I haven't touched that game in many years. But I want to go back to you mentioned kind of taking on another company if that's what the route that you want to go. And as I mentioned, you found your initial spike of users like by posting the game in the NBA subreddit like 13 years ago. Have you explored official licensing with the NBA and NBPA, or do you feel like the freedom of being unlicensed is what makes BBGM so great?
Yeah, I don't know. Realistically, they're not going to care. Like, basketball GM is way too small. Like, the NBA is a massive business. They're not going to do a deal with like a one person company. So I actually have I have a friend who like is kind of in the sports like industry, and like he knew a lawyer who worked for the NBA on like in the licensing stuff, and he kind of like floated the idea to her like, hey, like would this at all ever be feasible? And she's basically like, no, like we're not doing licensing deals like that right now. And it's like, yeah, but like it's like kind of obvious, right? Like like all of basketball GM is worth like less than like a minimum contract player. It's like who cares? But it'd be cool if it somehow happened because there's a lot of stuff I can't use, like player pictures and like team logos, and like it would be cool to have all that, in the game. But yeah, I don't think it's ever gonna happen. And I feel like whenever I see like, and it frustrates me a little bit sometimes because like the NBA will do partnerships with like various like games and apps and like not just it's I've seen several, and I'm not even like looking for it. Just like I'll like come across it in some like new app in the app store with like official NBA license, and it's always like the scammiest thing.
Yeah,
Like it's
right.
always just like some like pay to win or whatever, and it's like I get it because like the NBA is not a video game company. Like they don't care. They're doing it to make money.
Right.
You know, but then like on some level, I feel like couldn't you do something with me and like like I'm kind of like I'm probably beneficial to the NBA. Like getting people like interested in like the history of the game. Um, you know, like does that matter? Like do they care? Like probably on some level, like it's good for the NBA if people are like into the history of the league and the history of basketball and you know but it's not gonna make much of a short-term profit. I guess that I'm talking about like indirect effects that some getting people interested in basketball. It's like, well,
Hmm.
also sounds kind of dumb, right? Because billions of people are already interested in basketball, so
I do think there's a route though, and I have no idea who to even tell this to, but I could see a route where like BBGM is so stat heavy to where like I could see a game version of the NBA pushing where you can load up a BBGM save and you can scroll through all the expansive history of the game, and then play from there, kind of like a 2K association,
yeah. Well, I could do so. So I would like to build that feature now. Actually, it's just, I mean, it's complicated. It's not a simple thing to do. But someday I would like to build that feature. It wouldn't have like the stuff it's missing now. Like it wouldn't have like the real team names and stuff. But you could imagine like a start at any point in history feature. It's just kind of complicated. But yeah, I don't know. You could imagine in 2K as well, and that would make them more money.
And there's even players and people that are not even in 2K that are rich in
Yeah.
history, in league history. This is off script question. Do you know, like off the top of your head, the most quote unquote famous person, or maybe even NBA players that have played your game?
Um. Well, I definitely don't know everyone who played the game, so I'm sure there's somebody more famous than I know who has played the game.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not aware of any NBA player who has ever played the game. Uh, I yeah, I don't know. I don't know how likely it is if anyone has. I do know that there are multiple people working for NBA teams and or working for the NBA who have played basketball jam, but they're not like famous people.
Hmm.
It's not like like people you've heard of. Um, Probably the most likely person that you would have heard of would be Neil Payne, he's like a journalist. He used to work for ESPN. He used to work for 538. He has like a Substack now. but he's played basketball GM. And he actually sent me like he actually found a bug in basketball GM and sent me a bug report.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Well, I know Kenny Beecham is like one of the
that's
YouTubers.
true. Yeah, he's played, but I think he only played it once though. But yeah,
It was a
he's
long time
probably more
ago.
famous.
It,
Yeah,
it
he
was a long time ago.
it was a long time ago. He played it once. He didn't fully get into it, which is understandable because there's a lot on his plate. So
Right.
like,
Right.
if he's
Yeah.
so you're gonna say, hey, can you take like 20 hours and really immerse yourself in basketball GM? It's like, well,
Sure.
he's a little busy.
He is busy. I feel like it
Yeah.
is a game that if he revisited now and he understood it a little bit more and kind of put in that time to appreciate it, he would completely fall in love with it.
He, yeah, he probably would. It probably would have had to get him like, you know, before he was like famous when he had like more time.
Sure.
Although I did see he made like a Hoopland video not that long ago, and he was getting
Yeah.
to Hoopland some, so that's cool to see as well, because Hoopland is not basketball GM, but the whole like indie basketball GM or basketball video game industry, where there's some level of brotherhood between us.
Sure. Sure. I will say that is my one and sole gripe is that BBGM it is hard to kind of create content out of. Like say I wanted to, because this league, like I said, has been going on for 2 real life years, and I would love to like create visual content with it, but I do have to rely on AI. It's different showing a screen that has just all stats and text on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just you talking, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's the game is not helping you, so you need to be you need to bring the audience basically,
Sure.
or you need to bring you need to do it all with your creativity and your voice.
Sure.
Um, yeah, it's tough. Like yeah, nobody's really done you know any like big basketball GM streaming or videos. Um, back in the day, there was a Sir Lane Game who did a number of
Yeah. Yeah.
basketball streams, and yeah, real ones remember him. But he stopped doing that years ago. At this point, he was like the only one who I think actually did like a good job at it. Like I liked watching his videos, I liked watching his streams. Like it was a good time. Like he was kind of like he had a little, but it was because he had some like personality that he brought to it. He's not just like playing the game.
Right.
It's like he has to kind of like entertain as well,
Right.
which is much harder to do. But it'd be cool if somebody else was able to do that, or yeah.
In due time. In due time. Well, before we run out of too much time, I open the floor up to my lovely GMs because I literally would be nothing. This league would be nothing without them. So we're gonna do a quick mail grab. Four GMs have
Thanks.
asked questions you can answer as bluntly as you want, or you can go into depth. But the first is New Mexico Aztec GM George. He says he thinks the current prog system is good now, but he asks, "Are there any
I disagree.
plans?" Well, he asks, "Are there any plans to change or rework progs?"
Yes, there are plans. There's long, complicated plans, and I am not going to commit to when they will actually be implemented because yeah, I've talked whenever I talk about it, and then it never happens, and that just makes me feel even worse about it.
Sure. So the wheels are moving, but there's no set destination.
Yeah, honestly, the biggest impediment is the fact that I have a toddler and a baby now, and this is like, you know, so I used to be able to spend like literally as much time as like if I wanted to spend 80 hours a week,
Hmm.
I could spend 80 hours a week, and like I cannot now, and my time gets interrupted, and makes it hard to do these larger projects.
Well, perfect segue because Cairo GM Jonathan he asks, "How do you balance having two kids?" Which congrats on the newborn, by the way. How do you balance having two kids and still maintain such a strong relationship with the BBGM community?
Yeah, I think poorly is how I do it. I don't think I'm doing a great job. I think I'm just lucky that like the game was already pretty good and had a pretty good community um, before we started having kids. Um, and then I think I'm kind of just coasting on that. And like, you know, it's not like I'm doing nothing. Like I'm still, there's improvements to the game. I'm still like, trying to answer as many questions as I can. But I'm not working at the pace that I used to. I'm not working at the pace I would like. Um, and then like things had started to get into a pretty good situation. And then we had another baby. So then, like now, and then it's like, well, now we got to figure out this again. And we have, not entirely, but we'll get there.
Well, always remember, man, BBGM was your first one, your first kid. Akron Dragons GM, reigning champ, by the way, Eli, he asks, what do you believe, or why do you believe playtime doesn't contribute to players improving? He says he saw this in the BBGM manual.
Yeah, yeah, well, yeah, reigning champ. Congrats. That is, it's hard to do. I mean, I'm not in a basketball GM league, but I'm in like a multiplayer, like a 30 team dynasty fantasy NBA league, and I got runner up once, and that was very difficult. So yeah, like good job winning the league. Um, I would say, you know, I'm not totally sure, and I think overall there's some uncertainty about how important this is. I actually asked this question to one of the basketball GM users I know, who is literally like a like analytics guy for an NBA team, and I asked him like, hey, like a lot of people ask me this question, like, should playing time affect progs? So like, do you think playing time affects progs in like real life? And his answer was basically, I don't know. Like maybe for some people it does, but probably for like a lot of people it doesn't. Or like, um, so I feel like that's kind of the answer. But then it's also like, okay, well, if you don't know, then the answer is kind of no, because that means even if it is a real effect, so small, it's such a small effect that you're not really sure it exists. That's kind of the same thing as no. So that's kind of what I'm leaning towards is not really. And I think the main reason is because people play so much basketball like before you even get to being a professional. And then when you're a professional, there's the training, the practice, the off season, which is probably more impactful for your development. Would be my guess than what happens in the games. And then I also think back to my failed basketball career, because I think I probably would have benefited if I spent more time on individual workouts and like instead of just like let me just play like pickup because it's fun. Because it's hard it's hard to work on stuff in pickup. It's hard to, especially if you're trying to like add something new to your game. There's only so many reps you're gonna get. So I feel like the training, the practice, is probably more impactful than the live game situations.
Yeah, I would have to agree. People don't see the practices. They don't see the long nights, the summers. You know what I mean? They don't see the training sessions. They only equate playing time to progression, which I am not a fan of. I don't agree with. I will say though, like I don't have an issue with it being in BBGM, and I feel like if it was implemented, then I feel like it would be such an easy feature to exploit. That's where like it's probably not even beneficial to add it.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where like it's kind of from some perspective it's fun because like I've done it in other video games. You get your guy and you're like, I just want to turn this guy into a star, so I'm just gonna make it happen. And you're gonna start and play 40 minutes a game, and then you get and then you develop. Um, like yeah, like I remember in 2K many years ago turning like Khalid Elamine into a star, and it's like, well, you can just make anybody into a star. You just put them in the starting lineup and make them play a bunch. But like it's not so simple in the real world. But like it's kind of fun for a video game. So basketball GM is a video game. So like maybe it should be there. I don't know. Maybe it will be someday.
Well, last one, Pittsburgh GM Bond. He asked, you mentioned in the Reddit thread about the Donovan Mitchell or the Donovan McClellan trial that it was probably the craziest thing you've seen someone do in a multiplayer league. So he wonders, what would you say is the second craziest thing you've seen?
Well, well, I mean, there was the whole incident with the bot that you referenced before when like leagues all the Discord channels got deleted and stuff like that. That was pretty crazy as well. I still don't entirely know what happened with that, but yeah, I think that's what comes to mind. I don't know. To be honest, I don't follow most of multiplayer leagues that closely. I don't know everything
Right.
that's happened. I
Sure.
mean, just the fact that somebody built a Discord bot in the first place is pretty crazy.
Yeah, thank God the bot did not wipe our server. I would literally would have shed tears. but yeah, luckily we didn't get hit. Uh, well, while I still have you here, I want to send you. Do you have like what are you on? You're on a computer. Do you have our like message thread open, perchance?
The Discord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to show you two guys, our two league goats, right? And we use a custom goat formula. So our two
Okay.
league goats, and I want you to tell me which one is better in your mind. Okay.
Okay.
I'm just gonna send them or send you no names, only accolades, and yeah. And there's some custom awards here. Just ignore those unless you have questions about them, and I'll be happy to answer. But
Okay.
those two, top or bottom.
Well, it's top has a lot more win shares. Uh, lot better. Scored more, shot better, played more games. I don't know. Bottom guy. What's the bottom guy better at? A couple more assists per game. One more Finals MVP. Yeah, I mean, just looking at this information, I mean, you'd have to say the top guy. He had a higher peak, longer career. Um, yeah, gotta go with the
Going with
top
top
guy.
here.
Yeah.
Kareem Nelms. That's the league goat. So just for a little bit of context, the first guy is Frostelfer, and I'm not even gonna try and pronounce his last name. He's from Iceland. He was the main the best player in the league, undoubtedly for probably 8 seasons, and he led his team to 5 consecutive championships. He was the undisputed GOAT until the top guy came, and then it became a little bit more ambiguous. And whenever he finally retired, which was 2 seasons or 3 seasons ago, the debates kind of started flooding in. So if you say Kareem Nelms is the GOAT, Kareem Nelms is the GOAT, and I will have nothing else to say.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, just looking at this information, it seems pretty clear. So maybe people are just, too attached to the original GOAT. It's like, there's some people who still say like Bob Cousy is the GOAT.
Sure, sure. I think that's what it is, just like a sentimental value thing. But I know we're at an hour, so before we close things out, I just have 3 more questions uniquely tailored to you.
Yeah,
Um,
go for it. Yeah, I got time.
Perfect. Firstly, do you still feel like a player when you open BBGM? I know you kind of answered this a little bit, but or you mostly see the machinery behind the curtain.
Yeah, yeah, definitely behind the curtain.
When do
Yeah,
you think that transitioned?
probably it's probably like 8, 10 years ago at this point. Like, it's been so long. It's a long project.
Okay, perfect. Boom. Quick, clean, move on. As I told you, I've been playing BBGM since 2016, and over time, it's become more than just a game for me. It's a tool that I can use to escape from life's difficult events and seasons, getting lost in fictional worlds I've built for hours, even spectating thousands of seasons and narrating these worlds as if they were true reality. It also led me to build the VBA, which has been running for 2 real life years. And the people in this league are genuinely my friends. I've literally met some of them. So when you hear stories like that, that's something you built became a refuge, a community. Does that responsibility ever weigh on you, knowing that your creation has shaped people's times, relationships, and maybe even how they see multiplayer games?
Uh, I don't think it weighs on me. I think it's more just like I think anybody who creates, any type of like art, and like I feel kind of like pretentious saying like, that it's art because, you know, I'm just like a programmer, like I'm not like an artist. But like video games are art, that's just how it is. Um, Anybody who creates any type of art, like people are going to interpret it or use it however they want, whether it's like a book or a movie. Um, and that's just how it is. And if people are getting something positive out of it, then you're fortunate that you made something that people care about. Uh, you couldn't want any more. From my perspective, I feel kind of the same way from the other side that like I can use it as I've in the past I've used it as a distraction for if tough times happening in life. I can always go back and work on basketball GM or that's always there for me as well. Yeah, so I kind of feel the same way.
Well, lastly, man, first, thank you. I want to give you your flowers for just building something that has literally lasted, going on, almost 2 decades, heading that direction at least. Very easily, we'll get to that mark. Um, if development ended tomorrow, what part of BBGM would you hope people remembered the most?
Probably, I don't know, maybe just the fact that it was just like free. You can just open it in the web browser and you can just play anywhere. And then you think like this is going to be some like, junky little web game. And then you're like, oh wait, that actually has like more features than like any other basketball simulation game pretty much. And like this has features that like 2K doesn't have, and this has some features that like Football Manager doesn't have, and like you know just yeah, the kind of like the depth of it, while having kind of like a simple core, and just run in the web browser and play it on your Chromebook at school, whatever.
So we're condoning playing in school. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, oh definitely. I mean, listen, I mean, there's a lot of downtime in school, and there's a lot of classes that are not necessarily teaching the most useful information. So I think definitely there are certain video games that can teach you more than what you learn in school. And then even better, if it's like if they have some kind of filter blocking it in school, and you got to figure out how to break around that, and that's an education as well. So there's things to learn everywhere.
Agreed.
I played plenty of video games when I was in school, and that was a long time ago at this point. But yeah,
Well, Jeremy, I just want to say, as someone who's been around, for a decade and spent years inside this engine, it's cool to finally hear some of the stories behind it. You didn't just build a simulation; you built a foundation that people like me have been able to build worlds on top of. I'd love to revisit sometime, in the future as the game keeps evolving. So thank you for your time today, for being open, sharing your experiences, and most importantly, building something worth caring about, man. Appreciate it.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you too. Thank you for the all the thoughtful questions, and thanks for being a valued member of the community.
Of course, man. Yeah, I'll send you the text version of this. So if you do run across one of these, one night, you're like, damn, I wanted a better answer for that, or I wanted to expand on that, then you'll have them, and you can expand however you want. So again, man, appreciate it. Appreciate you guys watching as well. I know the people, the GMs in the league are gonna absolutely love this. So yeah, man, appreciate it. Catch you on the next episode.
Thanks. Bye.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.